She sends her husband out of the home. He goes to CVS to pick up some medicine and to pick up some food for the home. And while he's away, she murders 3 of her children. She had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 3-month-old. And while he's gone, they say that she takes an exercise band and strangles all 3 children. And then immediately after doing that, she then slits both of her wrists as well as her own neck, and then jumps from the 2nd-story window of her home. They even mentioned that while her husband was gone to the store, that she tracked when he would be coming back home on her Apple Maps thing. So she's been arrested, and she just went up for bond, where her defense attorney brought up the issue of postpartum psychosis and postpartum depression.
So she did not die from all that.
She did not die. She was actually paralyzed from the waist down as a result of it. And some information ended up coming out where she had kept notations in her phone about experiencing postpartum anxiety, about going back to work, because her maternity leave was coming to an end, and just having some issues where when she had the youngest child with 2 children, if you're a mother and you have young kids that are close in age, it is very hard. You're not able to give the attention that you would to the oldest when they were the only child to the youngest. And so she had expressed some issues with how she couldn't really give the attention to the youngest child as she did the oldest one.
I think we all felt that. I mean, anybody with multiple kids, you feel like that, like you aren't given, you're not able to wallow and give your littlest what they need like you did the other ones, right? The other one, right? Yeah. The oldest. I guess, and we know that she was being treated for postpartum, right? That she had went and begged for help, and they had her, and according to her defense attorney, she was on a bunch of medicines.
A cocktail of medications, things like Klonopin, Prozac, Zoloft, and if you've ever been on, if you've ever been, yes,
right.
All right. If you've ever been treated for anything, you know that a sleeping pill makes you crazy and groggy, and then you combine that with any type of depression meds, they make you feel wonky. They can make you feel zombie-like. They can have all kinds of side effects. So when you start adding in multiple drugs, I can only imagine what that was doing to her body and her mind.
And we know that her husband was at her OBGYN the week before, begging for help, right? And saying she's like a zombie. Something's not right. I need help. And they never told the father, and I think this is a big deal. They never said she doesn't need to be alone with those children, knowing everything that they knew. And she was keeping up like a little diary in her notes of how she was feeling and why. Because as a labor and delivery nurse, she knew that postpartum was real and that she needed to be documenting these things. So when she goes and talks to her doctor, she's got it all right there. I mean, we all wish as a lawyer, we have clients that get hurt and they don't mention all the things that are going on. So she's sitting here trying to help herself and help the doctors diagnose her and get her on the right path. And, this happens. And so she's laying in a hospital bed, paralyzed, knowing that she has killed all 3 of her children. And her husband, he wrote this beautiful, sad, pitiful letter to the world, saying that how much he loved her and asked that the world forgive her like he has, because he knew this was not her. And that even in their struggle of this postpartumness, they were going deeper and all these things, and he was trying to understand her more and get her the help that she needed so desperately, and the whole system just failed her. And we see that though, as women, we're told that we don't talk about postpartum, right? Yeah. We don't talk about it because that makes you a bad mom. At least that's how it's portrayed, and that's not the reality of life. I mean, you've got 2 babies, 1 on the way. I've got 2 kids. Shardae's got 3. And we know, I've never experienced postpartum depression, but my friends have. Right. Mm-hmm. And watching them go through that, and me going to their house and saying, hey, go take a shower, let's
I actually have anxiety about this baby coming up, just because I've had a lot of friends recently who have had similar experiences with postpartum, and them having the mindset to be I cannot be alone with these kids, and having their parents come into town to stay with them and sleep with them. And I love this husband for trying to get her help and recognizing the signs, because I feel like so many times husbands don't know what's going on. They don't understand what they're supposed to do. And it was the case with my friend. He was trying to give her like tough love, you know, like, you're fine.
Snap out of it.
Yes, you're fine. And that's not what she needed, you know. And she was like, thank God my mom was here, because my mom would sleep, because she went 5 days without sleeping, which that by itself does crazy stuff to you, you know. So yeah, I mean, I think that there is a lack of education on because when you have a baby, they say, how do you feel? Do you feel suicidal? No? Okay. Goodbye. You're good. Go home.
Good luck.
I just, my youngest is about to turn 1 next month, and angel baby. Whenever their analysis of whether I was going through postpartum was a little checklist at the pediatrician's office that's like laminated, and you wipe it off for the next person. And here's these like random questions that they're asking that you're like, why would I even admit to these things, right? And what are you going to do about it? And honestly, when my postpartum issues started showing up after Angel Baby was when I was about to go to work and go back to work, and she wouldn't take a bottle. And I started to say, well, what am I going to do? And it created all this anxiety in me. And when I went to the OB, luckily my 6-week appointment was coming up, and I go to the OB and I'm like, hey, these are the things I'm feeling. And they gave me a checklist, right? And I started doing the checklist, and they come back in there and I'm like, yeah. So I know that you think it's just about work, but it's not just about work, right? It's not just about work. And when they started asking you these things, like whether it happened with your prior kids, I realized, heck, I was in such a haze after the prior kids. I don't know. But you know what? I can remember.
Like there was no maternity leave with baby number 1.
No, there was no. I went back to work 2 weeks after I had, my youngest, with the pouch and all. And with Trey, I was, I had just passed the bar. I was unemployed. I stopped working in order to have him. And so I didn't have maternity leave, and I didn't have a job to go back to. But I remember days where I was like, look here, Dennis, he's yours. And, I went to Starbucks, I got a coffee, and I'd go sit in the parking lot and cry. And, now I remember, right? I can look back at it to say, that was probably postpartum. And I say that to say that as educated as I am, while having children already before, that there are signs that I didn't even see myself.
Yeah.
And my significant other wouldn't be able to tell you now that that's what I was going through, because hey, heads up, men go through their own thing too.
When life gets